What is up, guys? Hopefully all is going well. Just make sure that's working there. Awesome. So, you get the pretty view of my hands today. It's Matt here with Glasshammer Gaming for tonight's Sunday sit-down sessions. So I think this is going to be the more permanent time now of 7:30. We used to do it midday, but you know, real life gets in the way of hobby sometimes. So we thought we'll move it to the evening. Let's see who's here. James, hi guys. Paddy. So Manny's not doing this with me, James, but I believe Manny won the tournament. I just saw Dan about half an hour ago, so I believe Manny won. Bloody fish. Those little fish warriors. So yeah, tonight we are. I've just finished up some commission work for Glasshammer. Posted up on the page earlier on. Just finished some bases for somebody. So tonight I'm going to do a bit of painting for myself and just have a chat about general hobby things. Although currently I've lost a paint. Ah, there we go. So yeah, I just noticed in the chat. Yeah, another win. Another win. So something a little bit different from the 40k. Just painting up some Age of Sigmar minis. Although these would be pretty sick as what are the snakes that the Dark Eldar have? Slith. These would make pretty awesome Slith, to be fair, for the old Dark Eldar. So I'm just going to do some work on bases on these, and then yeah, guys, we'll just chat hobby, what anyone's been working on, tournaments they've been to, games they're practicing for. Obviously we've got the Glasshammer tournament, the St George's Open. Is it St George's Open? St George's Champion. Sorry, coming up in 2 weeks. Anyone in chat coming along to that? Nice little 2-day 40k tournament over here in sunny Telford, which will be awesome. I'll no doubt go along and see what filth is being used. So yeah, today I've got a rare opportunity to paint some stuff for myself, because anyone who doesn't know, I do commission painting now for a living. So that's right, I don't have a real job. I just get to play with toys all day long. Unfortunately not usually my own. So painting my own stuff is usually a bit of a rarity these days. I have to squeeze in big painting sessions. And I've been painting a lot of a different army lately, so I thought I had these sitting on the shelf in a box for, I don't know, probably 12 months in the pile of the pile of shame, and thought may as well actually start getting some paint on them. Whether I'll end up using them much or not, I don't know, but if they're painted I'm probably less likely to get rid of them, so I'm probably doing the models a favour. But I'm trying to get through a lot of this stuff because I still really want to pick up the new Chaos Minis for 40k. Still want to get my hands on Abaddon, and although I saw a really cool conversion today where someone had used the new Abaddon model to make a conversion for Horus, which looked pretty awesome. It actually worked really well. It almost looked, after I'd seen that, it almost looked like the model had actually been modelled more on Horus than the old Abaddon model. But so I definitely want to pick that up. and the new obliterators and things like that, and get painting those. On the Chaos Love, I'm pretty chaos heavy with 40k and AOS, so got to get in there. List writing. Oh, sorry, can I ask a quick question about your list writing service at Glasshammer, or best to message the page? Oh, so probably best to message the page, James, to be fair. I'm just your resident painter. But Dan or Manny or Adam will be able to answer your questions probably a bit better, mate, if you drop a message on the Glasshammer page. They'll get onto that for you and answer any questions you've got. But talking of lists, what lists, if any, are people working on, or what armies are people working on? Like I say, I'm really keen to get some of the new 40k Chaos models on the go, but still loving the AOS models, man. Still loving painting those up. Alright in saying that the FAQ's dropped as well. Is the 40k FAQ dropped, or has it just been announced when it's going to be dropped? I'm sure I saw a post earlier on for that. Be interesting to see what changes happen after that. So yeah, there's a lot going on, I think, behind the scenes here at Glasshammer for the St George's Champion. It's only 2 weeks away, I think, now, something like that, and I think about 70 odd tickets have sold. So on the winning streak that Manny's on, it's probably a good job it's his own tournament rather than playing in it. It's getting a bit boring now with the old fish. Manny. Painting up my own Harlequins. Oh, awesome. Awesome. I do miss my Harlequins. I loved it when the book came out in 7th, and I was really wanting to get hold of them and could never really afford enough of them because, you know, it was like, what, 25 quid for like 6 guys, 6 troop or something like that, and then all the jet bikes and everything else. And then finally got around to making an army, started to paint it, and then thought, actually, I'm not going to use these, and just ended up selling them on, unfortunately. But I've got a really cool idea to do a converted Slaanesh army that uses a lot of Harlequin bits. So using like the masks and things like that, as in like the face masks and things on the Slaanesh models, almost as sort of a bit of a, because Slaanesh is returning in AOS and certainly, you know, in 40k, that Slaanesh is returning. I thought it'd be pretty cool if actually in that meantime, you know, they'd been decimating like, you know, a lot of Eldar and things like that, and doing it as if they had actually, you know, sort of seen the aftermath, and they're almost wearing their masks like in jest to them. Because a lot of, I don't know if anyone's seen the new models that are coming out for AOS, which, you know, obviously include the new Keeper of Secrets and things like that, and obviously those units will be usable in 40k, but they've definitely got a bit more of a circus feel to them, I think, now. Like, certainly some of their faces have got, you know, they're all grinning and things like that, so I think that would fit quite well with the Harlequin theme. So I was going to maybe look at converting my guys up and doing something like that with them, and doing sort of like a circus Harlequin-esque theme to my Slaanesh army, because I don't really use them at the minute, but it would just be a cool project, because again, like, I just love the models, so it'd just be a cool project to actually get them painted. But yeah, I love the old Harlequins. Load of bikes and haywire, James? Is that the general gist? That's what I've tended to see in the few Harlequin armies that I've seen of late. some of these blades painted on here. The more I paint a load of these models, actually, the more I think about the amount of crossover for some of these models that you could do in 40k. Like, again, I mean, these are the AOS Witch Elves, but they're far better looking than like the Dark Eldar Witch Elves. I know they're a lot more expensive. I think they are double the price for 10. But you know, it's the same with like the AOS Orcs and stuff like that. They're just so much more orky than the 40k ones, and it's pretty easy to just add guns to them and things like that. But yeah, these poor girls have just been sat on a shelf. Picked up a load when they were released, which I think, yeah, it's got to be about 12 months ago. And although they're really popular and they're a very good army, I've never gotten around to putting some real time and effort into painting them. So figured, whilst I've got a bit of downtime, I'll paint them. And if anyone, by the way, has got any questions about painting or colour schemes or modelling, conversions, whatever, then just drop a message in the chat and I'm sure we can sort something out. Otherwise, we can just sit back and chill for the next hour, 90 minutes, something like that. Sorry, I assume I might actually be painting a lot of this off screen. I'm so used to just painting normally. So this is a pretty cool effect that that I came up with for this army for their blades. Mainly because I was getting a bit fed up of, I mean, especially again in Age of Sigmar, with the amount of, you know, it's all obviously close combat weapons and things, so the amount of swords and all that you end up painting, and it just gets very, very boring and monotonous, just going, okay, you know, silver wash, and you can mix up the washes. You know, you could maybe, for like elves and things like that, you can do like a bluish tinge to them, and you know, for like death stuff or even Nurgle, you could do like a green tint to it and all that kind of thing. But in the end, it just ends up being exactly the same principle, just with a different colour. And I thought, I actually want these to stand out quite a bit. And I mean, a lot of the backstory with the Daughters of Cain is, you know, I mean, they're extremely aggressive, and it's all this sort of ritualistic pray to Cain and that kind of thing. And I wanted it to be that almost their weapons were like dipped in blood, but it wasn't like just usual like blood effect on the weapon. I wanted it to sort of just have a piercing red colour, so that it looked permanently daubed in blood, which just represented them, you know, constantly killing things and being so aggressive and everything. So managed to figure out a technique using the Tamiya Clear Red, which if anyone's seen any of the videos that I've put up more recently for the painting, I use this stuff quite a lot. They do a green and a yellow and a blue as well, and it's just like a clear coat, like a varnishy type stuff, which, like with this, you can see, although I know the light is on it, but it's an extremely vivid red. But with the silver underneath it like that, you still get that metallic look to it. And then on the couple that I already did as tester models, I've sort of done chipping on the edges of it. So if I wonder if I can improve the zoom a little bit. Bear with me 2 seconds. So can see a little bit on there that I've just done. You can see the red, but then I've done sort of like an edge highlight all the way around with a silver. So it looks like it's the blade is actually red, and then I've just, you know, it's still taken damage on it and things like that from using it. So, but it's just a bit different than you normally see. You normally just tend to see silver weapons, and that's about it. So I thought, well, why not do something a bit different? And I've not seen it really on other armies or other models, so, and I like to have all my stuff looking a little bit different. So yeah, so that's why I've just been, I thought I'll do these 10 witches, and then I've been working on the Blood Sisters, which are the snakes, which again I think are just awesome models. So yeah, I think these guys will pretty much be ready for a coat of that now. We'll get that on there. And against the silver, with being the silver underneath, rather than it being like the black primer or anything like that, it keeps the colour nice and bright. And like, I suppose like anything as well, you can just do a couple of coats on it if you want it to be a bit more vivid. But this stuff's actually really good for doing gemstones and jewels and all that kind of thing. I think it's much better than the GW paint. I know the GW paint is I think they were called gemstone or something, weren't they, like soulstone or something or other. But it's just the fact that you have to almost do a certain technique on how you pull the paint over the piece you're trying to paint. And I just think it just becomes a bit too complicated, whereas this, it's just the idea of you just basically apply it to wherever you want, and you get that really high gloss shine to it, and you can still paint over it. So you see the little lines that people will paint on to give it the effect of the light catching the top of a gemstone or something like that. You can still paint on top of this stuff, and I just think, and the gloss effect on it lasts a lot longer. I find that the GW stuff at times fades, you know, fades over time, and if it gets used, you know, quite a lot, I think, you know, depending where miniatures are stored, if they're stored in glass cabinets and things where the light can get at them, it can fade the glossy look on, like the Nurgle's Rot and Blood for the Blood God. Whereas this stuff seems to hold its shine quite well, and it's a nice. The weapons become the standout piece of the model almost. Gives a little bit more character to a very basic detail on the miniature. So has anyone else, apart from James and myself, painted anything this evening? Working on anything before the week starts, or if you're like me, you're preparing for the next 2 weeks of the kids being off school, trying to work out ways to keep them happy? Although I think my eldest now is pretty much at the age where I could probably give him a Space Marine or two to butcher with paint. Because my two are always saying, now what's this, what's that, can we paint something? But they always say that when, you know, they're next to that big £100 model or something, or the model that you've just spent the last 2 or 3 weeks, you know, trying to get looking really good, and then they're going, oh, well, can we play with this? And you drop everything to make sure you can save the model. So I think they're probably can do a bit of painting over the half term, something like that. But there we go. So you can already see, like, even on the camera from here and on the models that you can actually see there. I mean, with the, you know, the rest of them obviously isn't painted, but you can still see how all those blades stand out. And they really give, or I think they really give a nice effect to the weapon, and it's really quick to do as well. So it's not like it's something that you've got to sit there and try and work through over and over. You know, if you've got lots of models that you need to paint for your army and that, you can still get the effect done really quick. So I'll move those over to dry. Their base is nearly dry from the wash, and we can get them dry brushed up and do the sort of blood effect on the bases. It's an effect that GW showcased a couple of months ago, I think, and I did a similar example on here as a video. But I think at the minute we are going to just dry brush up these snakes a little bit. We're going to dry brush their scales. Now I will eventually, which I might do in one of the videos, one of the quick tip videos, is these are going to have a pattern on the back on their scales. They're going to have, they are potentially going to have these middle scales here will be painted red. You know, it's they will have that on there, or maybe, but I'm going to try and look at doing like a snake pattern on the back on their scales, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. But for the time being, I'm just going to dry brush the scales just to sort of catch those edges a little bit. Work phone call on a Sunday. So we're just going to do a quick dry brush on these, I think. Just to bring these scales up a little bit, and then I'll have to research some patterns, I think, on snakes and try something out. It might be a bit of a trial and error on these, which I don't want to do too much of the model and then realise I completely mess it up on the scales and then have to start again. But given that these are fairly elite models as well, and something that, well, I say I'm not going to have too many of, these are pretty brutal, so I'll probably end up with at least 2 units of 10. But I don't think 20 models is too bad to spend a bit more time on the detailing on something like doing scales on these. And then I'll probably gloss them up afterwards to give them that shiny feel that snakes have on their scales. Yep, that's provided I don't break them first. Are there any particular models that anyone wants to pick up, even if it's just for painting? I tend to find that a bit whilst I'm... Anyone play Bolt Action? Am I allowed to ask that, or is Glasshammer Warhammer only? No, man, ask away. Ask away, that's what this is for. We can talk about anything you want, any gaming related stuff, or absolutely anything. I personally haven't played Bolt Action for probably about 2 years, something like that. So I'm no longer an authority on the rules and things like that anymore, unfortunately, but I think I've still got a small collection of Germans somewhere, lying around somewhere amongst the boxes and boxes of other models. Is that your main game, Paddy, or do you play Warhammer as well, or what's your poison when it comes to gaming? I understand as well, I don't know if this is too loud, me talking, but because of where the camera's set up, every time I lean in to paint, I realise I'm about 5 inches away from the camera, so I apologise if it ends up really loud. Are the minis the same size? Now, so I believe the difference is that bolt action are 25mm scale, whereas Warhammer and like Age of Sigmar and things like that are known as 25mm heroic. So the Warhammer models are slightly larger, and by slightly, I don't think I've got a bolt action mini lying around, but to say in comparison, with this infantry model here, your bolt action model actually would probably be a similar size to Necromunda, so that would be roughly the difference in scale. I mean, I know that I know this is quite a big model, but even in comparison, to say something like the Witch, they are quite a bit smaller. I know this is Necromunda, but bolt action isn't far off that sort of scale because Necromunda is a bit smaller. But no, I mean, it was a good game when I played it. I mean, I don't know, you know, a lot of the rules changes, like I say, and things like that, but it seemed a pretty good game. And plus, I think with it being historical and stuff, you know, that's obviously where it's very popular. Historical gaming is you know, popular, and I think the first thing was I enjoyed playing it because of it being historical after playing Warhammer for so long. I think I maybe got a bit overdone with coming to terms with, okay, this is another fantasy creature and these are the rules it has and why the hell does it have these rules and all the rest of it. So I actually quite liked it for a change, but then after playing it for quite a while, I don't know, it just kind of seemed, especially if you're playing with a group of your mates but you haven't all got, like, for instance, I ended up playing with a mate, and like, I was using British and he just had American. So then you kind of end up in a situation of, well, of course we can play the game, but it just, do you know what I mean? It doesn't flow quite, to me, it didn't flow quite as easy then as something like Warhammer, where you could go, why are Stormcast fighting Stormcast? Well, there could be endless reasons for that. You know, why are the Americans fighting the British? Well, I suppose, again, you could come to some conclusions and you could make some things or reasons to why that might happen. But I think because, you know, it didn't happen that way, it's maybe a bit harder to you know, to focus on that. But I suppose that's always going to happen with the game, and I would, you know, imagine Warlord thought about that when they brought the game out and were just sort of like, well, we'll have to run with it. So, just Warhammer so far, looking to get into bot action to play my dad. He's World War II man. Yeah, that's it. There's the group that we used to play with were current army personnel, and some were past army personnel, so it seems pretty popular amongst servicemen and women and things like that. So, but no, it was a good game. It was a good game. Certainly a nice change price-wise versus Warhammer. You know, it ends up, when you're thinking, wow, I can spend £25 and that's pretty much my army if you wanted to play a very small game. Just buy one infantry box and you can make everything you need out of that box to play a game, which is cool. But I still end up reverting back to, there's a couple of games that I play more on a skirmish level. I mean, things like Necromunda. I'll probably end up having a play of the new Age of Sigmar, was it Warcry, that was showcased at at the start of the year and things like that. So I'll probably try that out. But Malifaux was one that I played for a bit for skirmish games. But I always end up returning to the larger scale gaming. Is it much cheaper? Oh yeah, loads cheaper. I think on average you're looking about £25, which would get you a box. I can't remember, maybe 20 odd models in there, something like that, which even in itself is, you know, a nice change. But also you've got enough in that box to literally play. So if you take Germans, Americans and British for example, you buy your infantry box, and then within that you've got enough to build your, you could say build 2 5-man infantry units, and you can also build yourself something like an NCO, and you can usually build some kind of weapons team in there, like a machine gunner or something like that, or sniper. So, and then you can literally play with that. So it's, as far as like out the box ready to play, you know, even like Warhammer with their start collecting sets, they're not ready to go. You know, you still have to add something else in there, whether it be a HQ or you know, another troop choice or something like that. I know it doesn't work like that so much for 40k anymore, but certainly for Age of Sigmar, none of them are just ready to go out the box, and they're never enough really to play a game with. So on that respect, they are quite a lot cheaper. And like vehicles will range, I think, from sort of £15 up. You can still buy blister packs and things that are like £5 or £6 up as well. So, and I think that the points are fairly heavy. You don't tend to get, or from what I remember, you don't tend to get things like, you can't min-max like you do in Warhammer. You can't go, well, I'm just going to take dirt cheap things for this and take 200 of them. You know, the way that you actually build your army is you can only have so many types of thing per like HQs that you have and all that kind of stuff. So it's but no, it was a good game. But the rule set's changed since I last played it, so. Sold buying the Band of Brothers set, €70 I think, and 2 armies. Yeah, exactly, there you go. And you get quite a bit in there. So, you know, €70. I mean, if you go to unfortunately Glasshammer at the minute, well, not to my knowledge, don't have access to things like Warlord games and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, if you find somewhere that you can get it a little bit cheaper as well, it works out comparatively dirt cheap. You think that's a Lord of Change is 70 odd pound, I think, full retail, and you're getting 2 armies worth for that with bolt action. So yeah, give it a try, man. Give it a try. It's always nice to have a lot of different games. I've noticed quite a lot of people, whether it's my own friend groups or other pages that I'm on and things, where people are hitting that burnout stage again. You know, either a new edition of a game or a new release or something like that comes out, and people tend to play it like mad, and then they end up with a bit of burnout. So it's sometimes nice to have an alternative game to fall back on, which is why I've ended up playing things like Necromunda and stuff like that in the past, just to give me something else to focus on, and then it keeps me away from the hobby that I've burnt out from for long enough. But still, you know, something like Necromunda means you're still going to see 40k models. You know, if you go on the website to order new miniatures, you'll still see stuff, you'll still see them releasing new things, and then eventually when they release something that catches your eye again, you know, then you go, ah, brilliant, now I'll get back into that game again. I mean, that's happened with me recently in that they re-released a Skaven book for Age of Sigmar, and I first started playing Warhammer when I first started playing it properly, i.e. following the rules for it and things like that, not when I was a kid. The first game I played was Warhammer Fantasy, and the first army I had was Skaven, and I painted up 100 clan rats and plague monks and all sorts of bits and pieces. And then when I fell out of love of that game and when it changed, I sold it all off. I still had some bits I bought a few bits to use in Age of Sigmar, but they pretty much sat in a box for quite a while. Then they bring a book out and I'm going, brilliant, now I'm ready to play those again, and I've still got some models to start me off. So, you know, it comes round full circle, which is why I try now not to sell too much stuff, because I think eventually I might want to do it again, even if it's just a painting project. You know, I might want to get back into that thing. I might not want to now, or I might be bored of it now. But I mean, you know, I applaud anyone if they can stick to one army permanently. I know Manny at the minute is obviously running his Tau into the ground, but you know, it's you know, I applaud people if they can stick to one army and not buy any more. I mean, I'm just weak as anything. I think even the other weekend when I went to Warhammer World, played in a tournament, and I'd said no, I'm not going to buy anything. And that then turned into, I'm not going to buy anything. Oh well, I'll just buy a single little model, like in a blister pack that's direct only, so it saves me on the postage and things. Which admittedly, the first thing I did look for was that, and they just didn't have any there. It was all currently sold out. So I found an alternative, fine. So I ended up spending, like, I don't know, £9 or something, which I think is pretty good going to Warhammer World. And then by the end of the weekend, I thought, nah, do you know what, it'll be alright, I'll just buy this other model. And then that was like 50 quid later. So, anyone who can just stick to one army, or just, you know, and not be intrigued or drawn in by the new stuff that's being released or anything like that, you know, I applaud anyone who can do that. But saying that, I am really in the game more for the hobbying. You know, I love the painting, I love building the models, I love coming up with paint schemes and things like that, and that's really why some of my armies sit on a shelf for a bit, because it's because I love the models and I want to get them, but I just don't have, you know, an idea for them straight away. I mean, one of my favourite colours to use is red, and pretty much every army I pick up, I think of some combination I could have used red for them, and I try not to do that because obviously I want them to all be a bit different. So that's why mine tend to get shelved for a while, until I think, it's like with these, I thought, oh right, okay, actually now, yeah, I can do that for the bases, and because again, I tend to work from the base up, so if I can't find a scheme for the base, then the models aren't going on the bases, which means they're not going to get painted. Such a complex hobby that I make for myself. But I suppose it pays off in the end. So yeah, I'll more than likely end up popping down to the Glasshammer tournament in a couple of weeks, the St. George's Champion. Be interesting to see what lists people are using and things like that. I haven't really submerged myself that much back into 40k like I said I was going to, so it'd be cool just to see some games and see what people are using, or what's ridiculous in the hobby now and how that changes. I was pretty sure I saw something earlier on or yesterday about the FAQ coming out, or whether it's out or not, I don't know. Most of my day is spent staring at this blue mat, or what was once blue. One more base to do. or certainly the edge of the base. That's those 10. So now, what can I work on now? The hair, I suppose. I've been using the army books and codexes and things like that a lot more lately to see what sort of colour schemes they come up with, and they've got a lot of nice stuff. A lot of nice ideas. But I just can't make my mind up. Ooh, although that would look pretty nice. Boom. Black hair with pink streaks it is. So we'll start working on the hair then. Or I will on one model anyway. See how it looks before I end up going in and painting the whole 10 and then realise I don't like it. Or it doesn't work. Get the old detail brush out for in there. I'm using quite a big brush for this. Do a little bit in there. So has anyone been to any tournaments lately or events? There's been quite a few on, and there's like the Warhammer World ones now are on pretty much every weekend now. I think there's always something on. I've got a couple coming up, I think. I need to get some armies worked on for those though. Let's get here, avoid the ear. So again, actually, the more I paint this model and some of these models, in an Eldar or Dark Eldar army, kit bashed out of this range of models would look awesome. And the colour schemes that they've used for these and things would be really good too. Right. Let that dry off and then we'll try the effect out. Whilst just waiting for that to dry, just check on chat, check online. Oh dear. Ah, long day, long weekend. Okay. Just keep letting that black dry off. Move these out of the way again. There we go. So I think what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to look at doing something similar. If I show you a picture out of the book that I just noticed. So I'm pretty much looking at that kind of hair. I think that sort of hairdo would look pretty cool. I mean they've obviously done it with dark skin, and that's the typical colour that you see. I think that would look quite nice to sort of stark black, the black, sorry, with a stark pink. It keeps in the red theme with the knives and everything, but then it's I want the theme to be quite dark for this army, that, you know, where they've come from and the whole background with everything else is quite dark, so I think it would go quite well with that. So I just need that to fully dry before I can dry brush the grey, and then I can add the pink strands in. So yeah, I think whilst we're waiting for that to dry, we may as well do some chipping on these weapons. Where are we going to go? Do the chrome for this, bit of Vallejo chrome. Do a bit of chipping on these weapons, I think, and then we might call it a night from there. What have we done? Yeah, we've already done 53 minutes. Normally go between an hour, hour and a half, something like that. So I'm literally with this, if I can keep it in shot. If I remember how I did the others, pretty much just little scratches all the way along the edge of the blade. I just think it's something a little bit different as well. Like I say, I've not seen this actually in person, this effect, and I think it looks really cool. And I mean, you could apply this to any sort of weapons. Like I say, dark Eldar weapons, this would look really cool on. There we go. I'll save the underside, but we'll do the bit at the back of the spear. Just turn it round. There we go. So that comes out quite nice with the little scratches all over it. I know the light's quite bright and shines off that gloss quite a bit. I think the key with this as well is trying to get random markings, you know, because naturally we want things to be in order, you know, 3s, 5s, that kind of thing, so you can have something in the middle and, you know, all that kind of thing, which is why models are sold in those packs, because it's like pleasing for it to be that amount. And the same sort of happens with these. I used to find when I first started painting that I'd maybe go like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like two little scratches and a bigger one, and then you'd sit back afterwards and you'd see this pattern that you'd painted it in, and then it looked painted on. It didn't look realistic, and it took quite a while really before I learned how to properly make things just look random. It's the same as things like battle damage and knowing when, you know, you think you want to add a bit more on and then actually you've added a bit too much, and so it's taken quite a while really to work that out. And it's always a bit more daunting on the first model you do. I mean, I haven't painted any of these yet before, so although I've done the effect on other models, either in this range or in something else, it still depends how it translates to the new model. I mean, a weapon like these spears, you'd think would lend itself to this kind of thing, but because it's bigger, a bigger surface area, I mean, I don't know, that, you know, it could have ended up being a bit too much for the effect, whereas on the smaller knives and things it looks fine because they are smaller. So it is just that thing of trying to judge it based on, you know, it's coming out all right. I think I'm certainly getting the effect I want, so well, I think I will literally just do these other two, and I think then we might call it a day for today. Be back again next week. Like I say, we'll be on Sundays at the new time of 7:30 in the evening, and again, you're more than welcome to come along, have a chat, ask questions about painting, models, anything you want, anything hobby related. Doesn't just have to be Warhammer, it can be all sorts of games, anything you want. It's just a nice informal sit down session. Do a bit of painting if you want whilst you're working on a project at home, and it's surprising how much gets done whilst you're either just sat listening, or if you have mates over and you do a painting session and you're just chatting away. It's quite surprising how much you manage to get done, and that's the aim of this session. we'll just do this. Check if there's any more messages. And I think we'll sign off for tonight, guys. So again, don't forget you can watch on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. If you're not already, you can sign up to be a Glasshammer Elite member, where you get extra content, battle reports, video tutorials, all sorts of things. So if you're not already a member, head over to the website and sign up. And other than that, guys, I will see you next week. Take it easy.